Hey, oh, how is it going, Kevin?
Good. How's it going with you, Chris?
Oh man, best year ever, right?
Yes. I see we're both just a little bit more bundled up today.
Yes, yeah. I'm in my a Christmas Doctor Who sweater today.
Ooh.
This was and I've got the power. So,
I
happy
I
New
have
Year
a
to everybody.
I got a Sequel Saturday shirt from Minnesota on, so
Oh, very nice, very nice.
it's
That
it's
is,
at least finally starting to cool down a little bit here. So
yeah. I'm gonna admit I had to do a great culling of my hoodies. I had 24 hoodies.
nice.
Well,
Well, you need them up there, right? I mean,
what are you gonna do with 24 hoodies? That's too many hoodies. 24 hoodies is too many hoodies.
well, but you got the one ultimate, the bearskin hoodie, so you don't need any
Yes,
other
I did
hoodies.
get the bearskin hoodie, which is mighty nice.
Oh, I see Dax is playing today.
Holy cow. Okay, so Dax's favorite thing in the world is when I get up in the morning and say, "Let's go to work." He grabs a toy, he comes down to the office, and he plays with the toy, he sleeps, all that good stuff. But I've been on vacation, and so like this is the first time I've said, "Hey, let's go to work in like 2 weeks." So
So he's got to get all that energy out.
yeah,
He's like, Chris, we got a backlog. And you took off for 2 weeks. I got a backlog. Look how much I got to play with here.
that
Right?
that
I
that
got
is exactly right. He's got all these new Christmas toys that he's got to play with, and
I've
he's destroying a Mr. Potato Head right now.
he's like,
Mr.
I've
Potato Head
completed
is
nothing this spring because you've taken off this whole time.
yeah, that's right, right. He's not been his usual self. So, good morning, everybody. It's good to see everybody tuning in here. Um, Belinda, it's always nice to see you. Let's see who else is in chat.
Mark thinks
Mark,
12 hoodies is plenty.
yes, 12
So
hoodies is
I
plenty.
guess that's the limit that you could keep. You have to
Yeah,
the
I actually went down to 4, and now I'm back to 5. It seems like people just keep growing hoodies, but we'll see how that goes.
I got
Uh,
one, two, three. Yeah, I got about three or four that I commonly wear. I don't think I have many more. If they are, they're buried somewhere in the closet. So
okay,
this is one of them. This is light enough. This was great
okay,
from the Minnesota group that I kind of wear it around the house, and as the temperature changes in different rooms, it's nice. So
yeah, gotta
gotta
collect
collect
them
them
all. That's
all.
right.
Have a whole closet full of hoodies, right? Peter, send us
Well,
a picture of that sometime.
yeah, well, yes, yeah, that'd be great to see that, Peter. Uh, just as a reminder, I've got a whole bunch of videos that are coming out soon. If you want to support the channel, we don't yet do like members only conversations, but for as little as $5 a month, you by becoming a member, you get early access to all the content that's out on this channel. I can't wait. We're about to film. Next Tuesday, we're going to be recording the second session of Working with Data with Miguel Myers, and we have a third working with data that's going to be filmed next week as well about data storytelling. So
Hmm.
don't forget about that. But yes, enough with all this talking. What are we here for? For
I think
keeping
we're
us
only.
on track here.
I think let's start off the year right. Let's just talk and see what we could say. No, 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 no. All right. What we're here for is to take a look at the brand new, just out of the box, open during Christmas SQL databases in Fabric, and kind of get some thoughts. We'd like to hear your thoughts. If are you working with them? Put it in the chat. Tell us what you're doing with them, or you're experimenting with them. I've done very little experimenting with them. I'll bring up a couple small points throughout the rest of this. Chris, I think you've been looking into it a little bit more, been having more conversations with people on it. You
So
know,
I've been doing a lot of work in SQL databases, and this actually goes back, I don't know, June or April of last year, like maybe even further back. I don't remember exactly when we started to play with it, but I am just blown away by SQL databases and what this means for our solution and architecture. And I'm excited because it really helps us now bridge the gap between just having online analytical components to now having online transactional components. We'll get into more of that in just a second. So, um,
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting kind of debate. I,
yeah, yeah. So if you haven't read it, this is the announcement that they had for SQL database. I'm gonna put this in the chat, so do go ahead and check that out. This is the announcement. Oh my god, that's really basic, but basically what
that is just an announcement.
right. Like that is not a. I thought there was more to that page. Oh, that is a stupid link. Don't look at that link. That's dumb. This link though, this is the database link. So it's got all the documentation out here. So you can go ahead and look at how you can get started with it, security, blah 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 blah. The biggest thing that I looked into though, that was important to me at the start of this, was this SQL database feature comparison, right? Because we've been using Azure SQL because Fabric SQL is simply the new home for where Azure SQL is going to be. Like it's
Mhm.
still in Azure, you can still do that, and they haven't announced the discontinuation of that. But I can guarantee you, at some point in time, there's going to be like number one, there's differences today between the two. I'm going to wager we're going to see the vast majority of all development in Azure SQL be on the Fabric side, and only some things are going to then move on back down to Azure SQL. So this is the future home for all things Azure SQL. All right. If we look at this though, I want a quick hit on a few of the things, and yeah, Christina made a good call here. She loves them, but hates it can't do DDL operations and query the SQL endpoint at the same time. Pigeonholes to just replacing my bronze lake host instead of my gold.
I'm a little
Incorrect.
confused on that statement. So,
Yeah. Well, I, I'm gonna challenge her on that one, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So, um,
she'll be on
but
in
let's
two
quick go
seconds.
down. This runs through. This is actually the overview of SQL. Basically, what it does is like I said, it brings Azure SQL uh, uh, into Fabric, makes it accessible. You can start to use those functionalities directly inside of Fabric. When you spin one up, it automatically creates a SQL endpoint. So that you can actually query the endpoint and and then see the without impacting your front end applications and the uses there. This does allow for 3-part table name conventions, so this is actually incredibly useful. So look at this, we can now write a singular query statement, and if we don't, we use a warehouse, a schema, and a table name, and then we join in on this is a database, a schema, and a table name. So you can actually query between different environments. So super helpful. Um, uh, it's this is incredibly powerful, especially if we're talking about like the build functionality. Especially if you're doing like a create a CTAS statement, create table as statements for engineering and loading your environment. This makes it super easy to just import like new items and new components that don't exist inside of your warehouse. This makes your updates to gold so much easier, because now with a simple query statement, you can omit anything that's not in there. Oh, this is, I
So,
mean, and
so
that's super helpful.
this is for objects that are in the same workspace, right?
Hmm.
Where it's the three-part naming, and that three-part name could be the Lakehouse SQL Analytics endpoint, the a data warehouse, or even another SQL database that's in that workspace, right? To move things around.
Right, right. So
And
this
maybe
makes it
you said it that way and I was typing something, but I just wanted to make sure I'm clear. So
no, yeah, good call. Because we do not have. I mean, if I zoom in on it, why can I not zoom? Oh, there we go. Note that it's just the object like the warehouse and the database, we need 4-part naming convention here, right? We need, this needs to be the workspace. Once we can do the 4-part, then we can really get crazy with the stuff. I think the reason we don't currently have 4-part is because more than likely we're going to see cross server joins in that case are really tricky to do. So imagine you have 2 workspaces, they're 2 different capacities, and the capacities are different places. That can make that compute functionality difficult to get performance right. So I'm going to guess that's why we just have 3-part naming conventions, but that's super helpful, right? Let's see here. Okay. The nice thing here, if you were on, do you remember Kevin talking about SQL packages? This means we can move the objects around, import, export the data with the backpack, and it makes it really easy to move your content around. So it's very helpful, right?
And just to be clear, I think we were saying you meant Kevin Chant that was on recently. I've talked about this a little bit as well.
Yeah.
A couple episodes ago, we were talking about the advantages of CI/CD and how SQL package helps, and this becomes very portable, through being able to set things up and move things through SQL package. So, and database projects, it's very nice.
I think it's kind of interesting. Christina is calling out that, where did my mouse? Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Christina is calling out that you can't do insert into a query into Lakehouse. So I thought they fixed that. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm on a different build or something like that. But I'm also a big fan of I am a big fan of when I'm building tables to be doing the hot swap of the tables and then the rebind, right? Like, so you've got your new table, or you got your table that people are currently loading and working on. You create a new table that you could be swapping, and then you just do a rename, and that functionality definitively works. The reason I like that is it allows me to inject balancing statements before I do a rename, right? So I can ensure that I've tested and validated that something has not gone wrong in my build out of a table, and so every time I produce a new end result table, it's tested and validated before I go for people to productionally access that. So.
And that type of functionality is only within a SQL database. SP rename is not supported in the data warehouse, so that's a limitation of trying to do that. So if you're trying to do that type of thing, and what it sounds like, Chris, is that works out really well when you give people access through SQL or through the endpoint in order to get at some data, right? Because if you're doing it through a semantic model, even with direct link, you could wait to do the refresh until you've done your validations and people are hitting that model. But yeah, so yeah, that's a good way to handle that part of it, where you're giving them access through that.
Yeah, and Belinda's properly calling out, if you're looking to get started with Fabric databases, do check out this learn path. It's a pretty good one. A great way to get up to speed and all the who's it's, what's it, bells, features, that type of a thing. Okay. Now, do want to hit in on the feature comparison. There are some things out there that don't necessarily jive, or it's not fully there yet. Like hey, remember, still public preview, right? So be aware of that. So you can't necessarily open a ticket on this yet, but it's still pretty good. You could still build a lot of stuff on it. But just be aware you have to test before you move forward, right? Public preview is always a little bit different. Although This is an odd public preview. I will be honest with you. I thought they should have announced this months before they did, because I've been testing and uh I've been testing this out for a long time. I've been working with people that have been testing it. This has been rock solid for like apps and all sorts of use cases for a while. So I think the only thing that's preventing it from being GA, I think, is internal stuff on the Microsoft side. Like they've got a, they're HIPAA compliant. When they go to GA, things become HIPAA compliant, and all these other like check marks go into play. And so I think that there's just time that takes testing wise, where things have to be in public preview for that to occur. So,
Well, I mean, I've run into an issue that I think we should prevent it, right? Because I defined a table that didn't meet the right conditions for mirroring,
hmm
and even though I dropped and recreated the table that did meet those conditions, the mirroring still picks up the old definition,
mm,
and it won't mirror. Even if I drop it and just don't recreate it for a while, I go into that monitor mirroring tab or whatever that is, the replication, and it shows it as a red X, and I'm like, the table's not even there anymore. I created with the correct definition under a new name, and it shows that it's going to replicate, or mirror over just fine. So,
oh,
but
interesting.
yeah, so I think there are a couple little bugs still that they need to work out. I suspect right now that what they're really looking at is, the usage, making sure their performance counters are correct. Because
hmm
to me, one of the biggest things is if you spike in this and then run out of capacity,
Yeah.
and you move an OLTP system to this. I was talking with somebody the other day, right? If you're doing e-commerce and that database is your only source of revenue because you got to have sales coming in through the website, and that goes down, people put in a lot of design work to keep things from like that from happening, because it cripples the business once once you can't make a sell
Yeah.
online. So I think some of that's got to happen before people really start really getting excited about it.
Uh, I'll say that's a subset of people, right? It's a subset of companies that run their entire business off of Azure SQL, right?
I would just say any SQL, right? That there you got the back end database, regardless if it's mirrored everything else, right? There's a lot more smaller companies that you think that of that are running all of their sales, right? That may bring in a couple million a month or whatever, and they have one SQL database that is primarily doing that. It's more than you
uh,
think. The smaller companies, definitely.
all right. Well, maybe. I think a lot of them are just using SQL boxes someplace, but that's a completely different conversation. We could get into it's. um,
Well,
but
but I guess
Sanjay has a
I
great
guess that's
question.
part. Yeah, but I know before we get into, but maybe that's part of it because what you're saying is this isn't intended to replace all the different sequels, like in SQL boxes or their own
hmm
prem, right? Just what's being done in Azure SQL.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, there's still use cases. I mean, Microsoft SQL database is still a product. You can still license it. You can still
Hmm.
get it. I've not heard any plans for decommissioning that. I mean,
No, I don't
maybe
think there's a plan to decommission Azure SQL either.
right.
But um,
I don't know about that. I I don't know, but I'm gonna guess that Microsoft's a big company. They've been around for a long time. They're looking to a future of being around for a long time, right? So, you don't want to support everything always forever. That becomes just a nightmare, um, and will bloat Microsoft so that they can't. Eventually they won't be able to compete. It'll be a problem. I think they're starting to be very smart in how they're going to plan stuff out.
well,
Um,
I thought they always had a 10-year plan on support, right? Something comes out in the GA. I thought it was like a 10-year plan, um, that
uh,
that they supported. I thought that was documented.
Yes, yeah, there's a 10-year plan. Correct.
Which would mean
Right.
we're still 10 years from.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But if you
Just
look
to
at a
kinda help set
20-year
the
plan,
table. Yes, if you look at a 20-year plan, maybe Azure SQL or other stuff starts going away, but right? Or it
right.
stops getting different updates, this, that, but
Well,
just to kinda
and
set
that's a completely
everybody's.
different thing. Like, it
That's
could still
true.
be around for a long time, it
Yeah.
just but it might maybe it's not getting updates other than critical security flaws. So
Yeah, right. And just I'm just trying to set everybody's kinda mind frame of timeline context, right?
Mhm.
We are talking more this closer to 10 years out, of any of these things going away versus, you know, sooner than that. So,
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that why I like to move on to, updated things as quickly as possible is because all of the features and development gets moved in and investments go
to the
onto the
new.
current platform.
Yeah.
Old platforms become old very quickly, and then you can't do basic functionalities, and you get stuck with what's there. And I
Yes.
think
And
the
then
future development is here.
right. And then you have the time crunch of having to get to it.
Right,
I
right,
yeah, yeah.
right.
Ask people that are still on like the first release of SQL or whatever.
Right, right, and then you have the time crunch because okay, it's not going to be supported anymore, or there's a security issue in place, so you've got
Mhm.
to address the security issue, or whatever it is, right? Like then you suddenly have to. If you just have components in place, uh, well, and that's exactly the problem at Belinda is that we still have access for God's sake,
Yeah,
and that's causing all sorts of problems. Continue, it will probably plague us for the rest of our career, but I think we want to get into a framework where that's not going to always be a problem.
it's true.
But
All right, thanks for entertaining that. I see we have a question.
yes, Sanjay is asking: has anyone tested reports perform faster while using Lakehouse as source or the semantic model? And I'm going to inject that as the imp. He's talking about direct lake versus import and direct query. I think those are the three different things,
Right,
right?
right, because
Um,
everything goes from a Power BI report, everything goes through a semantic model.
Correct, correct,
So,
correct. So I could say that the testing is as follows when it comes to performance. Import is always the fastest. So import is still king. It still works in all of the cases, right? Direct Lake works exceedingly well. It's very fast. It
mhm,
it the big thing Direct Lake does is it means you don't have to do a second load. Once that gold layer is loaded, you're done. There's no additional
right,
processing. That's a big deal for
a
big
huge deal.
companies who have big amounts of data where like, hey, our daily load is an hour or more, right? So that's a huge challenge, for
Yeah,
a lot of companies with very large
and
models.
you're saying an hour or more even when they built it as incremental,
Correct,
right? Because 'Cause they're
correct.
that big,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. They're you've got
Mhm,
millions of new sales. You've got, millions of customers that every day, right? Like, there's lots of things, when you're talking hours of uploads of incrementals and targeted table loads and be able to get off of that, that's huge. So import works very good. We still have direct query though, be a direct query on a highly performant SQL database that where the model is designed properly is still faster than direct lake right now. So um uh you just have to be very mindful in how you set these things up and make sure that you're designing and building it right. A poorly built model, import will be import can overcome lots of
yeah,
poorly built models, just not at scale for users or size. Um, so I'm just talking about on a well built model, well defined items, right? Um,
yeah, and there's a little bit of back and forth on that, just really little about, Direct Lake brings the best of both import and direct query, which is, been kind of Microsoft's marketing thing. And yeah, it kind of does, right? But
Hmm.
It's not always the best, right? What I'm seeing with Direct Lake is that very first read that, because I tend to be working with my model, and I'm always going to be the one that refresh it and start, you know, doing the read. The very first time, man, it could be slow getting things loaded in the cache, right? So I got to look at the semantic link labs to where it talks about reframing the model, and then having everything that was in memory get recached in, right, to kind of help that out. So you got to be very concerned about that, especially if you just let your users come after it. The the advantage that you get with Direct Lake when you want it to have to be the best of both worlds, and it's very quickly, is you're leaving the automatic refreshing slash reframing on, which means every time that you're making changes to whatever your end source is, it's refreshing that model, right? Or parts of that model, which means it's swapping it out of memory, and that first query is going to happen more often. It's going to be slower, right? And then so if you're changing data constantly in the source that's becoming Direct Lake, that means you're constantly getting slow queries rather than timing it or controlling it to say it doesn't automatically refresh. You do it when you say all that data is ready, and you could hit, refresh it up. You could get close to it. I agree with you. Import is still king, but it makes it, I think the Direct Lake part makes it a whole lot easier that you don't have to write your incremental loads twice. Like you were saying, incremental loading to your gold layer, and then writing something with incremental refresh.
Yeah, and Peter has posted a great blog post that
Mhm.
Marco Russo and SQL BI published about some of the challenges there. Note, this was published last April, and with the speed of development in Fabric now being 12x because of Copilot and AI, this is kind of the equivalent of like an 8-year-old article at this point in time. So just do keep in mind, um, that's the rate that they're improving stuff at now. So while a lot of these things are good points and good things to take into consideration, there is an updated documentation out on Microsoft's site that addresses a lot of the questions and concerns that did happen at the end of September. Again, that's now like kind of the equivalent of 3 years ago. So I'm sure there have been continued updates that they've been continuing to make out uh, on Direct Lake. So while we're saying import is king, direct query is currently faster than Direct Lake. Um, uh, or yeah,
Or
Direct
no,
Lake.
Direct Lake I think is faster than Direct Query.
It is.
I think you said it the other way.
I don't know about that, but okay.
You don't think so?
I see better performance on. I've seen better performance on going directly to Fabric SQL, and that's kind of where we were going in this conversation. Because the
Gotcha.
question is, which is faster, import, direct query to Fabric SQL, or Direct Lake? And Fabric SQL is beating it
So
out. And
direct query to Fabric SQL can beat out a Direct Lake
correct.
to either a lake house or a warehouse.
Hmm.
And that gets back to having the right skill sets to properly tune that, right? Put the right
Yes.
indexing on and understand a lot of that. Because
Yep.
that's always been the challenge with direct query is, you can't just throw out a table with a primary key, right? And
Yep.
or your common, say, five table star schema. You have to put some other indexing on. You have to understand what you're doing on setting that up, in order to get it a whole lot. So
Yeah. Now, uh, I'm going to say we're jumping a little bit of ahead of ourselves, because
yeah,
I think there's a lot of people that understand these things, but I kind of put together a little slide here to quick get us up to speed. What the heck are we talking about? Because we've been throwing around OLTP and OLAP quite a bit. OLTP is your online transactional processing. i.e., this is where applications are reading and writing data. It is very, very fast. To your point, Kevin, like this is what businesses run, their sales off of. This is what they
Mhm.
run their operations off of. This is incredibly powerful, and it's the heart and the soul of what people and how people build and manage their company, and it's why it's very critical. Um, I'll say the big thing that I've been seeing this honestly for months of companies that have been part of the private preview. They have switched over those core systems onto Fabric databases, and they've been running, and they've been finding it's much faster than what they were doing before. So this is a great solution. The nice thing that comes with Fabric databases, it has the SQL endpoint that you can use for analytics without having to do anything else. So the second you spin up a Fabric database, you automatically get the SQL endpoint. The big benefit you get is apps can go against that database, get that high performance, and not have to worry about lockouts coming in from someone running a query against a SQL endpoint, right? Because what can happen is if I run let's say it's either a poorly written query or it's a big dump of data. If I ran that against the database directly, that can impact my application's behavior. If instead I run that against my SQL endpoint, then I don't have to worry about that, because it's what's going to happen is that query is going to execute against the Delta files that are automatically generated and stored on the back end in Fabric, very much similar to how a data warehouse works, and or how a lakehouse works. And I can have my applications running with full access to the database, not getting locked out, and I can have my analytics running in here as well. So it's really powerful. Okay, now when we talk about OLAP, or online analytical processing, this is where we're talking about a database dedicated to your analytics, and this is for like a lot of people have created data marts using this. It's really good for, as Sashi's calling out, fast loading the data from content, well, from anywhere. It's really great for that. That actually kind of gets into what I think is going to be an evolution of our medallion architecture now that we have databases. All right, so if we remember when Fabric first came out, when we said, okay, hey, we're going to be creating the medallion architecture, we're going to have gold or bronze. Oh my gosh, can you tell I put this presentation together like 2 minutes prior to the live stream because we're doing it live?
It was 1 minute. I watched you do it.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So when Fabric first came out, we had we've had our bronze lake house, our silver lake house, and our gold lake house. And this was a great advancement. People love it. It's a strong pattern. Yes. We still do ETL. Yes. Load is always the last step. All right. As we started to work and operate, though, we started to move beyond that and say, hey, you know what? Oopsies. I got my labels wrong. Let's stick a warehouse at the end, but have a lake house. You can see where this is going. So lake house, warehouse. But wait, no, honestly, I think it's lake house for bronze because you land with your raw formats, and it could be any type of things. You could have, JSON files, you could have video files, whatever. But as we looked at the silver layer and the gold layers, we wanted to add in more structure and more conformity, and that's where the warehouses started to come in. This is, warehouses brought in additional functionality to make this work and function.
Mhm.
Here is where I think this is going to go, and I'm very excited about this next slide. Is we go from lakehouse to warehouse to a database that is our gold space. And the reason for this is, if we look at where they're going, I think what's going to happen when we talk about write back and our ability to run and manage our gold layer, we are seeing significantly improved performance running against that OLAP, or OLTP/OLAP SQL database, then having these other components being that last consume layer for analytics. This is where we get some very powerful stuff, and we can then allow for our semantic models, which pull data from the database, to either write it directly into the OLTP side, or load or have direct query against that SQL endpoint on the other side.
So I'm going to be interested to see numbers that come out for that at some point,
Mm-hmm.
because in a way that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because the data warehouse is built on, right, an MPP architecture, right? So it could scale out across multiple machines, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the um, SQL database is still built on the SMP type architecture, right?
Yep.
So, which traditionally, for when you get up into a large amount of data, that's usually slower than it, right? But then if we go against, because we got the mirroring happening, what I'm wondering is, are we doing some of the performance looking against what is still the delta parquets that are mirrored over, and that still comes out very fast because that uses it spins up the MPP architecture in the back end, but then the SMP part is what's being used to write and keep things small and condensed. Is that what's
You're
happening?
exactly right, and that's why that addresses Belinda's question. If SQL is faster than Lakehouse and Direct Lake, is it using T-SQL, or is it still using Delta Parquet? And I think it's more of it the you're using Delta Parquet, or that MPP architecture, for your analytical read. That's the SQL endpoint, and you're still using the oh crap, SQL engine, the SQL
Hmm.
database engine, for that OLTP side. So OLAP is MPP, OLTP is still
Is
your SQL
SMP?
engine.
Yeah.
I just, yeah.
No, you said it right. Yeah, the
Okay.
OLAP, it would be it would be spinning up the equivalent of what like the data warehouse or the SQL Analytics endpoint is using today, which spins up an instance that is capable of being an MPP instance, so it can spread across multiple nodes. Where, and they may be doing things even with the Fabric database, that even though it is based more of SMP, um, and these get into terms that you could go look up, and but it has to do with how, because even with SMP you get into different nodes and this, that, and the other, not nodes of machines, but just how the machine itself is set up. Anyways, it could be very fast. So yeah, I guess, because it gives you that the best of those two worlds when you need it, right?
Hmm.
And so you mentioned right back. And thinking about, how much does need to be written back into it, like the classic is what people are looking for, and I think they've teased somewhat, is having native write back from the either semantic model, right? I mean, they're talking Power BI, right? Whichever part that is, either something built into the report layer or something built into the semantic model layer, right?
Yeah.
That,
And yes, and where this is going to go, how this is going to work, that's a lot that's going to shake out. I have now, we are saying that, hey, have your write back go against OLTP, and have
hmm.
your loads run against your OLAP side, the MPP side. I did see someone do a and I looked this morning. I couldn't find the post or the article, but they were actually testing their loads of their semantic model, going from the OLAP side, the MPP side, so the SQL endpoint, or
Hmm.
going directly against the database. And they were saying the database loads were 10 times faster.
Really?
Yep. So I was a little surprised by that, but it looked like it was a legitimate, like, uh, validation and testing, and I had So it looked legit. So I think a lot of this stuff's going to shake out. The nice thing though is if we're using this architecture that I kind of talked about, if we're using this architecture, and if you truly are getting a 10x loads from the OLTP side, oh, yep, and Christina's validating that she's seen that exact same thing. With this architecture, you can totally do that. You don't have to worry about hitting that MPP side or the SQL endpoint for your loads in your semantic model. So you just run directly off of that, right? And now that may change and evolve over time, but
when we say loading the model, does that mean that the model part is import again?
correct.
So that they're doing import from the Fabric SQL database, and the import is still fast enough.
Yep.
That, like, were they saying that it's so fast they didn't have to build an incremental load into their semantic model? They could just take whatever amount of data and it loaded faster that way.
Right. So do you guys want to see the build of a database to see how quick it is?
Can I?
We can.
What if we said no? What?
We talk about something else.
All right, guys, have a good day.
Yeah. Mic drop. I'm out. All right. So let's start. Like us warehouse is SQL DB.
Hey.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
I think we're there.
Literally do it right now. So let's go. We're gonna create a new database. So SQL database preview. Now I wish they'd have the right, like, we have two different icons. I wish we didn't have that. So we're gonna call this one by Livestream. No, Fabric Fridays. No, Livestream.
That's
Livestream DB. Create. And so we're going to create this. Notice two things are going to come from this. We're going to be we're going to see the database created, and we're also going to see the SQL endpoint get created with this. So if I go back over, come on now, SQL endpoint. There we go.
There it is.
You can see this automatically gets created. This is where my OLAP. What's the command key for typing, Kevin?
I think if you do it as Control 4, you'd have to escape back out of this. Or is there you want to just get text as you're zoomed in?
Yeah. Well, whatever. Oh, actually, look at this.
T.
What's that? Control T?
No. So do your zoom with Control 1 or Control 2, and then press T, and then you can start typing.
Oh, look at that. TP. So that's my online transactional processing. How do I get out of that? Oh, there we go. This is my OLAP. Right. And then look at that. Now I've also got my semantic model. Right. So all of these automatically get created right off the bat. So I don't have to do anything else. I'm just ready to go. I've got this up and ready. All these components are there. Okay. So now when I go in, I can actually go and get data, and I'm actually going to do, where's my bulk data?
I thought bulk wasn't supported yet. That was in the documentation.
Isn't it? No, the new copy job.
Oh.
It's here. I think it's in pipelines. Sorry, I did this like
fast copy
right before the vacation. So now my brain is dead. All right. So I'm going to be loading this. I'm going to be loading this from my One Lake Data Hub. So I'm going to pull this from, where did Christina want it to come from?
She
From my warehouse.
said a lake house or warehouse, so whichever one you got.
All right, so I got my warehouse. Now I did not warm this up, so this is live. We're doing it live, everybody.
See, it needed one of your hoodies. You shouldn't have thrown them away.
Right, right. Come on now. Okay, there we go. All right, so I've got my bronze data. I'm going to pull these. Just going to load. You know what? I'll load just a couple things, a couple dimensions, and one fact table. Internet sales. Who'd I pull? Yep. Customer and dim date. We'll do those three. Next, choose destination. Where did it go? One Lake Data Hub.
Yeah, I was gonna say it should show up down below. There you go.
So Livestream DB. Yes, sign in.
Got to create a connection.
Connect.
Oh, yeah, she was saying she was trying to use notebooks and insert. I don't know, Christina, if you were trying to use the T-SQL notebooks. I haven't tried T-SQL notebooks against this, but Python notebooks I don't think would work, right? Because it's all the Spark.
Well, all right. Well, we could do that too.
You have gotten that to work?
Yep, I've got that to work too.
Through it like an ODBC connection? I guess I could wait. We don't have time to wait.
Yeah. All right, let's see here.
She says she's tried all of them.
Next. Okay, there we go. Save and run. This is going to run. We're going to see this load. Okay. Run this puppy. Here we go. Come on.
Come on.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Got 30 seconds of time to fill.
Yes, it's going to get loaded. So, okay, let's presume that loads. Actually, good idea. Let's head back into my Livestream SQL database. Now, I'm going to say, where's my query? Wait,
I think Peter is I don't know what the MB4, but F2 dies again because I think like where you had your rebuild and your F2 died while you were doing this.
What's that?
Says what that he has something in the chat about F2 dies again, right? And didn't you have that happen during your rebuild?
Yeah.
Hopefully on this little bit of copying.
This should not be enough to kill it. I loaded multiple databases and warehouses and lake houses in that live stream to blow that out. So
yeah.
And I thought SQL Query Notebooks was here. Am I crazy?
I haven't seen anything about notebooks when you come from this part of the interface. I haven't seen it. But I also haven't tried starting up a new notebook, change it to T-SQL, and see if I can get it to
that's
connect.
what I was going to say.
Right? So like if you do here and you say notebook, and then you change it out to T-SQL.
Yep.
And then you would add
lake houses.
Now, if you I guess what I would try is add it as if it's the warehouse.
Oh, there it is.
Well, but and that's saying that's a SQL Analytics endpoint.
Yeah.
I doubt that that's going to let you write in this case because that should be a read only due to the mirroring.
Yeah, you're right. That is, well, actually, no, I think you can write to it.
You shouldn't be able to because it's not going to mirror back the other way.
Uh,
Mirroring's a one-way
well,
direction.
I got bad news for you. I think this is how this is going to work.
Well, I think you could read it. I doubt you're going to be able to write it.
Oh, but it is stuck. You can only do in the current workspace. So I don't have another warehouse in here. That's okay though. I could create a warehouse. Livestream DW create. Because you know what? We do it on the fly. Ha 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 ha. There we go. And that's exactly it. We're going to be using that old shortcut here. So my warehouse is in a different is someplace else. So but I'm going to no.
Yeah, I think you'll be able to read across both, but I still don't think your notebook one's going to be able to write to.
And we're just gonna call this one yeah, DB no.
You don't want to create schema DBO; it's already there. So
Is
you're
it? It
trying.
wasn't there. Oh no,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. It takes a while, but it gets stood up by
Okay.
default.
Tables. What am I missing? Why am I not getting shortcuts?
Because warehouses don't support shortcuts.
Yeah, they do.
No, they don't. Only lake houses do.
That's stupid.
I didn't invent it, but that I know for a fact. I'd love to be able to say we could do shortcuts into a warehouse or something else, but it's only to lake houses.
All right. All right. Pretty sure you could do that, but all right.
I'm 99.9% sure you cannot.
That doesn't seem right.
Now you could, yeah, only lake house.
All right. That's
Yeah, because I've been trying it because I love using shortcuts, but I always got to stand up a lake house in order to do them. So
okay. So here's my shortcut, 2 tables. Great. Add those in. Query them.
yeah, and it always takes a little bit for it to become warm
Right.
for these because I think there's some caching behind it.
Yeah, you're spot on. There's a cache functionality that has to occur. So your first time hitting it, it is more expensive, or yeah, it does take longer. Like that should be fast.
Well, creating the shortcut is extremely fast.
Yes.
Being able to use it is, like the first time, get a cup of coffee. There we go. Now it's
Right,
starting to kind
there's
of
that
come in.
one. I'm gonna presume that's gonna finish.
Yeah,
Great.
usually when the first one comes up, then the second one works pretty quickly.
So now I can add in my live stream or my lake house. Confirm. So I've got my dim employee there.
Mm-hmm.
Got my customers here, so I can now say I can write a dim employee, select top 1000, eliminate this, run that one, see the results. Yes, yes, yes. Now here's where you can inspect, check your data quality. I was so excited about that. And now we could do save as table. Okay. God bless it. You have to select the to me that's the stupidest thing. Like if I'm going to hit save on table on a grid, like it of course I want what produced it. All right? So now I'm going to choose where I'm going to save this to. So my live stream DB is where I can save that to, right? So I could call this one. What is this? My employee
Okay.
dim employee. Say okay.
Oh, we get an
What?
error because the mirroring is read only.
Telling you can do it. No.
Nope.
Hmm.
It doesn't make sense, right? Because your SQL database side of it needs to be in sync with your mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if the mirroring is one way through the transaction log, which is how it works for all other mirroring, you can't write to that other SQL Analytics endpoint, even though it looks like a warehouse, because the writes have to occur through the database itself.
Okay, but all right. Fair enough. Hold on, though. We're not done here.
Well, we're almost out of time.
Oh, I suppose we are almost. Hang on, though. All right, new shortcut. Fabric. Drat. Where'd it go? Why don't I have my live stream DB here?
Because I mean, well,
Yeah,
it is interesting that you don't even have the analytics endpoint to the live stream DB, right?
well,
Because I'm
yeah,
using
I'm trying to do a shortcut, so I
no,
can't.
I get it, but I mean, sometimes it's also in you need more or something, or maybe search. You should be able to shortcut from the mirror part.
Yeah,
Because I do that with Azure databases that I mirror, and I shortcut to them.
I do love this endorsed by your org filter. That helps me out a
What about
ton.
if you
But
do all and then keyword live stream DB?
oh,
Interesting.
all right, well, um,
That's something that hopefully they need to add on. We should be able to mirror from, or should be able to shortcut from that mirrored endpoint, the SQL Analytics endpoint, into a lakehouse.
yeah, and yes, to be continued on that. Uh, Public preview, right? So some of the stuff maybe not quite doing the things, but with pipelines, we're able to do that. We're able to get stuff in and using that as a gold layer. And honestly, if I think about it, no, I'd want to be able to load that in with notebooks. That would be the best.
Well, what I think you would be able to do if
Yeah.
you want to load it in with like a Python or a PySpark notebook is you would have to load up the ODBC drivers and connect to the database part of it through some type of ODBC driver.
Mm, yeah.
And then you should be able to do those type of writes. And there's a
Oh,
lot of
we
art.
showed how you can write with a pipeline, right? So
Right. We showed how you could write with a pipeline. But what I'm seeing is a lot of people are talking about using the SQL database as its metadata repository.
yep,
And
yeah,
and so I would imagine within their notebooks, they're reading and writing data out, right? They're reading, here's what our metadata configuration is, but they're probably also writing out, here's the new files that I brought in, right? Which would be all part of it. And if you could do that all into that SQL database, but I think in the notebooks, whether it's Python or PySpark, you're going to have to load in the ODBC drivers to do that. And I haven't
yes.
had a chance to test it, but from
That is exactly right. That
yeah,
is what we're using it for. We build a metadata driven framework off of Lakehouse, then we converted to Warehouse to get better
hmm
performance, and now we've converted over to the databases to get best performance. And if you watched one of my live streams or videos, you saw that there was an issue where you could only have like a total of 5 databases inside of Fabric. That that limitation's long gone.
okay.
I've got dozens in my test tenant, and so that limitation, they pulled that out. So you should be good to go. All right. um Next week, though, we should do a little bit of a preview. Next week we're going to be talking about how do you set up for your Fabric environment and your Fabric content so that you're ready for that 2 a.m. call when everything's on fire.
So bring your best stories for the chat of what you've learned by something being on fire,
Yes.
and we could
Yes.
talk about that.
And we'll be going over like specific code, specific things, specific techniques to help you at 2 a.m. To get back to sleep, to put the fire out and to get on. So
Don't answer the phone. All right. Well, Peter, we'll come up with another topic for next week now. Thanks.
It's just gonna be a short one. We're just in and out next week. It's awesome. Well, thank you guys all so very much. You guys have the best day ever. Peace.
Peace.
Find strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.